intertidal hypothermia. Elijah went ice fishing a lot, like objectively a lot for one 24-year-old with a beaten-up hand-me-down fishing pole. So much so that Elijah was on a first-name basis with the innkeeper of Lazy Moose Lodge, a burly Ukrainian gambler who always clapped Elijah familiarly on the back and slid his room key across the mahogany countertop, hamming it up about neon feathery jigs, diving plugs and spoons, fishing lore for anyone not experienced with the line, as Elijah liked to think he was. Elijah was especially fond of the frail blonde waitress at the diner down the road. Her elbows stuck out like wings, and her face was dotted with sun-kissed freckles and the jagged edges of her cheekbones. She playfully joked about his returning chin goatee as she topped off his coffee, even when it didn't really need to be refilled. Elijah had fallen into a sort of a ritual every sunny Alaskan winter. He'd pack up his Arctic cooler. It was banged up and gifted from his stepmother as a sorry your real mother overdosed, but now I'm fucking your dad 3 weeks later present. He'd swipe a muffin and coffee from the hotel breakfast bar to not upset the frigid receptionist, then have a smoke, curse the overcast sky and creaky building foundation, and embark on trying to top his previous year's yield, every day for 3 days without fail. So, when Elijah huddled on the frigid Alaskan lake, he certainly noticed the abnormality. The abnormality? A bulging humanoid figure trapped halfway in the ice, about 20 yards out. It was certainly a female, but in Elijah's defense, he could only see it from the waist up. And to be fair, his only real female experiences were those he watched in porn and the girl whose tit he touched in a dusty closet at a 7-year-old cousin's birthday party. The rest of the figure was fractured beneath the thick blue surface. Elijah felt his heartbeat like a lump of coal in his throat. His parka stuck to the increasingly sweaty pools in his arms. The woman flared her blue appendages about gracefully, like a spinning top ballerina in a wind-up toy box. Her fiery strawberry ringlets pooled in the divots of her pale collarbone. She continuously let her long brown eyelashes tickle her upper cheeks, then slowly scanned upwards again, not only to reveal the emerald irises beneath, but to lure any nearby fishermen towards her in a coy siren song. The tip of her aquiline nose was sprinkled with sandy freckles and purple dripping icicles. She wore a golden heart locket that froze itself in the space between her breasts. A raw purple shadow spiderwebbing out into the rest of her chest. Her white tulle dress glided through her. She ran a velvet-gloved hand up her goose-pimply arm. Little daisy petals still lingered in the folds of her curls. Elijah felt his feet shuffling on ice before his foggy head could compute kneeling before her. Despite the below-zero temperature around them, the woman emitted a fiery aura that singed his cheeks red. Elijah studied the woman, the way her delicately manicured hand caressed the joints in his right knee as he crouched, the way she tangled the other hand in deep layers of her hair and let the locks flounce back down to her shoulders, the way her hips were gyrating still beneath the sheet of ice. And if Elijah could stare hard enough beneath his snow boots, he could just make out her high-heeled feet kicking in jerky, slow swirls. And suddenly, how her cold grip was like death around his wrist, her smile splitting up her cheeks, pulling him deeper and deeper through layers of inky Arctic water. Elijah woke with a splitting headache, a blinding white light around him, only punctured by the even paler face and strawberry cascading strands. She radiated as she jerked alluringly from side to side. The woman never spoke, only clicked her snake-like tongue and extended a warm hand, palm up, which Elijah immediately placed in his own. A divine gravitational force seemed to infect the couple. The woman's hem skirt kissed Elijah's bare ankles. Elijah settled his naked arms into the delicate crooks of the woman's. She smiled and tucked her head into Elijah's shoulder blade, with each graceful glide emitting a hot puff of raspy air into his clavicle. Elijah melted into the woman's embrace, taking solace in the way her hip bones rubbed against his lower stomach, or how her arched feet seemed to float inches above his own, never touching, except to change course in their eternal dance. Elijah felt her bright red lips vibrate against his skin, humming a mournful song that belonged in the throats of hardy seamen. Elijah almost forgot time and space completely, forgot his special room at the Lazy Moose Lodge, forgot his bedroom with the chip in the porcelain sink, forgot he was even huddled over a small hole in the Alaskan ice, dangling his beaten-up fishing pole. Except when the emerald irises thawed into the bulging veiny holes of fish eyes, and iridescent black scales seemed to burst from the very pores of her skin. Her throat was a mass of wriggling fish parts. A slimy silverfish wiggled out of her trachea and flopped into Elijah's hands. He watched in horror as her long nails dug half-moons into her throat, where she tightened a vice around it. Her eyes ballooned, her dress reeked of guts and fish small intestines. Elijah felt himself slipping, his ass bottomed out, and with it the little food that sloshed in there. Elijah was dunked again in the icy pool as the woman evaporated into tiny water droplets. The feeling of her slender fingers, entwined with his, felt like a stolen memory. Then Elijah was sprawled out on a patchy, cracked layer of ice. The fishing pole dug into places the sun didn't shine, and the silverfish slowly flailed back into the murky water. Elijah felt his numb fingers clawing at the small circular hole, as if he could somehow break his way back to the woman with strawberry locks and feline eyes. It was only after Elijah's wet hair was yanked from the ice by one Ukrainian innkeeper that he clutched his empty stomach and gaped for oxygen. Even through the snow gear, soaked with snow and another embarrassing dark stain, Elijah yearned for the warmth of her knees fitting into the gaps of his, and the way her stray red hair tickled the insides of his nostrils. It wasn't until Elijah was forcibly packing his old fishing pole a day early that he noticed the vast empty lake around him. Not a single ice fisherman in sight, all retired to a drunken stupor at the inn's tavern. Not a gaping hole in the ice that was just big enough to squeeze a person through. Not even a discarded fish carcass with dead gray eyes, mocking him with slick, scaly skin, save for a frostbitten gold locket strewn on the surface, matted with a clump of strawberry red hair.